Sir Edward Leigh.
It's an honour to follow my right honourable friend on this side of the House, such a well-loved, distinguished, senior member, even if he only has served 27 years in this House. I've sat through all this debate, and I wasn't intending to speak, but I just want to reply to a few comments, because by its very nature, this debate has been confrontational. That's what we do in this place, and we tend to concentrate on what divides us rather than what unites us. So I just want to say something about what might unite us. And first of all, these ideas that divide us. First of all, we're debating whether we should abolish the hereditaries, and the Labour Party says it's in our manifesto, and therefore we can do what we want. And we say that this is gerrymandering, and the bulk of these people are hard-working, and by nature they're conservative, so this is an excuse to get rid of a large number of conservative peers. So we say that. The government is going to carry on and do it anyway. So that's clearly very controversial. And then the next proposal, apparently, is to abolish the bishops. And I've heard what my right honourable friend says, but there are all sorts of objections to doing that, not least that this is an established church. Do we really want to attack a faith community? It's part of our history. Are they really doing much harm in the House of Lords? By the way, the Catholic bishops don't want to, because of our canon law, don't want to be a member of the House of Lords anyway, although apparently they're quite willing to support distinguished laymen to help the Catholic cause of the House of Lords. But we all know that. So I don't think we're ever going to get to an agreement on abolishing the bishops in the House of Lords. As regards age, we've had this debate. Again, we can't agree on that. It was a point I made earlier. There are so many people up there who make a tremendous contribution in their 80s, and the Prime Minister just appointed a distinguished former Foreign Secretary, Chairman of the Public Accounts Committee from this place, who are 80, and he presumably did that not thinking that they were going to have to retire immediately. So there's no consensus on age either. There's no consensus on whether it should be elected. We've had this debate for 120 years now. Some people, like the Liberal Party, say that it's ridiculous that you should have an appointed parliament, that the only proper way of doing this is to have elected people, and then we remind them that you just leads to gridlock. This is a parliamentary democracy, not a presidential system. So there's no consensus on any of these issues. But there is, and this is the point I really want to make, there is consensus on one issue, that the House of Lords is too large. There are 805, members of the House of Lords, the second largest chamber in the world after the Supreme Parliament of the People's Republic of China. There is consensus around that. So we should perhaps reduce the size of the House of Lords. And there is a simple way to doing this, surely, given that of 150, apparently, members of the House of Lords are not very interested in turning up very often, or even at all, some of them. Why don't we simply ask all the different groups in the House of Lords, hereditaries, bishops, life peers, and all the different parties to reduce their membership by a similar percentage, so there's no accusation of gerrymandering, and we reduce the House of Lords to around 600 members. This can be done very simply, given that so many people are quite happy to have a peerage but don't want to turn up. It could be by election. These groups themselves could decide, not the government, no question of gerrymandering. They know who works hard, they know who turns up. Probably wouldn't even need election. And we could reduce the House of Lords by this simple device to around 600. We could do it immediately, and we could ensure that all those people, perhaps who shouldn't be there, who are appointed for the wrong reasons, would leave that place. And we could do that very simply and easily. We could do it by consensus. And we could also beef up the Appointments Commission. The moment they can reject somebody on grounds of propriety, but they can't reject somebody on the grounds of suitability. And the powers of the Appointments Commission should be beefed up to ensure that only the very best people are appointed to the House of Lords, the people who've got experience, who can make a proper contribution. And there's no question, just to please my friend from the SNP, of appointing donors and cronies to the other place. These two simple reforms could solve this problem. We've heard about constitutional conferences in the past. I just put this idea to the Paymaster General, who I respect greatly, that perhaps it wouldn't be a bad idea for the political leaderships of all these parties, of all our parties, to sit down together and to do such a reform, to reduce the House of Lords to around 600. And whether we really in future want to appoint people in life, yes, I'll make my point. Whether we want to appoint people for life, why don't we just appoint them for 15 years and they retire in the general election after they've done 15 years? All these things are very moderate, very sensible ideas, and we could get consensus on it. We could reduce the size of the House of Lords. We could get rid of the bad apples, and we could actually achieve what we want. I give way to my honourable friend.
Does the Father of the House agree that inevitably we've been talking more about the process, given the nature of the bill, by which people become members of the House of Lords, than the activity which it carries out? And in particular, although not everybody in the House of Lords is an expert, a large number of people are experts, people who have reached the top of their respective professions, whether it be academia, the law, the arts, the judiciary, whatever. And does he cast his, or can he cast his mind back to 1984, when he and I, who had both fought the 1983 election, him for Gainsborough and Horncastle, which is why he was in this House, and I for Swansea West, which is why I was not, cooperated on trying to reform trade union elections to have postal ballots for trade union elections. And does he remember how he introduced a bill in this House, but it got nowhere because of the strong whipping of the system of elected members? But when we took it to the House of Lords, we were able to persuade people on the arguments because of the light whipping. The amendment went through there, and when it came back to the Commons, the then government brought in its own measures to meet the point. So does he not agree that an elected second chamber, apart from creating gridlock, would not have the possibility of introducing fresh ideas which, once introduced, may be accepted by a government in this place, which would never get off the starting blocks if introduced in this place initially?
Well, that's a very good point. I remember that rebellion very well. It was the start of my many rebellions. I do suggest the honourable gentleman opposite, they don't rebel, actually. They want to get on to this place. But we did have that rebellion. We finally won that issue. And my right honourable friend makes a very good point about how we did win the argument. And it just underlines how important it is to have a second chamber which is not composed of elected politicians. I really don't see the point. It would just be like this place. It would be full of people who want to become ministers, who are completely subordinate to the whips. What is the point of having an elected second chamber? The whole point of a second chamber is it should be independent-minded, and they are independent-minded. They regularly defeat the government, and they actually have better debates than we do. They're full of people who have tremendous experience in the professions, in business, in charities. So, I mean, I just don't see the point of getting rid of them, lock, stock and barrel. But I do think there's and this is why, just make my point, there's a perfectly good consensual argument which says that the numbers should be reduced, and there are some people there, either by the fact that they've been appointed not in an entirely right way, or because they don't turn up, who we should remove. I give way to my right honourable friend.
Well, further to the point made by my right honourable friend, Bagot spoke about this. So what Bagot said is that the distinguishing feature of the House of Lords is their view is emphatically their own view. And in his terms, and you'll understand what he meant, they're subject to no social bribe. Well, which he meant they weren't answerable to the constituents the way we are, and therefore subject to the pressure from constituents. They could make a judgment entirely free of that. That is a virtue of the current arrangements, and frankly, a virtue of the hereditary peerage too.
Yeah, but I think we can all agree on that, that actually the other place, for all that it is seemingly undemocratic, actually works quite well. They actually do listen to the debate. They vote according to their conscience. They have said that they regularly defeat the government. They improve bills again and again. So, you know, if it works, why change it? So I'll just sit down now and I just say to the Paymaster General, could you please think about the idea that I've suggested, that we could get some sort of compromise by which all parties in the House of Lords are reduced by the same amount. We reduce it to around 600. We give more power to the Appointments Commission, and in future we keep it at about 600.